I'm not feeling great right now.
Save it for the show.
Okay.
Save it for the show. Save it for the show. So we have a lot of things to. This is not really the show, but I'm trying to ease into it since I've cut Marco off. We have lots of stuff to cover. It's going to be John Syracuse's favorite kind of episode, an episode where it's probably nothing but follow up. So brace yourselves, everybody. It is everyone's favorite time of year. It is approaching WWDC time. So what does that mean? It means the ATP Store is back. And no snark, I really mean this. I've been really excited for this one. I feel like we have a really good lineup this year. Not that they've been bad in other years, but I feel like this year, really good lineup. And so here's what we've got. If you are listening to this now, recorded or live, you can go to atp.fm/store. And we have several different offerings. Let me briefly try to go through them all without John or Marco, probably John, interrupting me, and then we will spend a little more time on each of them. We've got...
Hey, I'm good at interrupting you too.
Well, yes, but I thought John would have more thoughts on this one. So anyway, so we've got... Actually, you succeeded in making your point. Well done. All right, so we've got the several different shirts. We've got the M1 shirt. The front is our favorite 6 colors, / with M1 on the front. The back, a certain John Syracuse spent an inordinate amount of time recreating the chip diagram of the M1. It looks excellent. We have that in color on the front, and then it's monochrome on the back. We also have that in monochrome on the front, so it's just white ink on the front, but several different colors of shirts. We've got an ATP Performance shirt, so this is kind of in the spirit of Under Armour, although it is not exactly Under Armour. So if you were wearing this while you are sweating, it doesn't stick to you, and you don't have to scissor it off. It actually slides right off. Then we also have the classic logo shirt, the one that we've known and loved for several years now. We've got the pins that have been around forever, and we'll eventually run out of them, but that day is not today. And then my personal favorite, because this was my contribution, we have an ATP pint glass, an etched ATP pint glass, which I'm very excited about. So that's the quick overview. This will all be available. The sale will end Friday, May 14. This is where I do the same thing I do every year. For those of you who are good about this, I'm sorry for wasting a moment of your time. I'm sorry, but I got to do it. Every year, every time, without fail, within hours of the sale ending, I get tweets. Is it over? Oh, I forgot. Is it over? Is it over? Oh no, I forgot. Is it over? Yes, it's over. So please, if you're listening to this and you are at all interested in any of these fantastic shirts or glasses or pins, now's the time. Pull your car over if you're in the car. Pull over to the side of the walkway that you're on if you're walking. Or in all likelihood, you're at home, which is where you probably should be. So stop what you're doing at home. atp.fm/store. Now's the time. All right, let's go through this with a little more detail. John, the M1 shirt was, I think, 100% your work. So would you like to dive in a little more and tell us a little more about it?
Yeah, for the people who don't listen to the car segments or don't care about them or don't understand what it is with our logo, like the joke of our ATP logo is that since Accidental Tech Podcast came out of us doing a car podcast, it looks a lot like the M logo, the BMW M logo, which has some colored stripes leaning to the right and then an M. And so our show was a bunch of, colored stripes, but it was the Apple colors and then a leaning A for ATP, right? This year, of course, we know the M1 is in all the Macs and the M1 is awesome. So it gave us a chance to make a shirt that actually has a bunch of colored stripes and a slanty M. Looks just like the BMW M logo. Please, BMW, don't sue us. It's parody. And so now finally we have an actual M shirt. Now BMW, the M1 was a supercar and it didn't have a logo or anything like this. Actually BMW makes their ones a little bit different, but we took some artistic license. So that's the idea behind the M1 shirt. So we've got the colored one, which I think is the most expensive to manufacture shirt we've ever made, because every single one of those colors on the front, I think, is a separate printing pass. Plus, we printed on the back. So I think for the first time, we had to do calculations to make sure we literally wouldn't lose money in each shirt that we sold. So we apologize for the price. And speaking of the price of these shirts, and forget about shipping and VAT, I know they're insanely expensive. Just want to remind everybody, if you don't care about shirts, you don't care about pint glasses, you don't want any of this junk in your life, but you just want to give us money, we have a way for you to do that. You can become an ATP member at atp.fm/join. And believe me, Like, if you want a shirt, get a shirt. But if you just want to give us money, we get way, way, way more money if you join as a member than if you buy a shirt. I know it seems ridiculous. Like, how can you not be making a ton of money off these shirts? The shirts are here for people who want shirts. I want shirts. My kids want shirts. People want shirts. People want pint glasses. Get them if you want them. They're awesome. They're really cool. But if you don't care about any of this merch and you just want to give us money, atp.fm/join. And the synergy here is, if you do want a shirt, but you don't want to pay full price for that shirt, if you're an ATP member, you get 15% off every single thing in the store. So you can become a member today. Become a member, pay for 1 month of membership, get the 15% discount, save more money than you spent on the membership, buy a bunch of stuff, cancel next month. It's really easy to do.
Yep.
Oh, and I guess the colored M1 shirt. So the monochrome one is our attempt to let people have this shirt for less money, because the monochrome is just one color of ink, so you don't have to do umpteen printing passes on it. But the cool thing about the M1 monochrome shirt is it comes in a ton of colors. Let me look at how many different colors we have with this thing. We have like blue, red, purple, teal, green, pink, like a lighter purple, like tri-blend versions of all those. So just because we show a blue shirt and you're like, I don't want a blue shirt, look at all the colors. A lot of them are really cool looking. Lots of different styles, different materials. When possible, we give every color and every possible material. It's not always possible. Some colors are only available in cotton, some only available in tri-blend, but just check out all the colors. Same thing with the performance shirt. It comes in a bunch of different colors and styles, so check it out. And as for the pint glass, it is not printed, it is etched. We already had someone ask whether that's dishwasher safe. I assume so. We will have follow-up next week to confirm one or the other, but that's part of the reason we didn't choose printing. Etching is actually scratching of the glass, so I think that'll hold up well.
Yep. I'm super excited about this, all of this, and I can't stress enough. John, can you tell the story of recreating the M1 for the back of the M1 shirt? Because you went through and just a preposterous amount of work to get this to look right.
It's not that much work. I mean, it looks, if you look at it, you'll say, hey, I recognize that kind of from like Apple's presentations where they show this stylized, not really realistic version of the M1 that shows the 4 high performance cores and the 4 efficiency cores and the GPU cores. And it's not a reflection of the physical chip, but it is kind of an abstract diagram that Apple uses. But of course, we can't use Apple's graphics because they belong to Apple's. But I can, in fact, sit there for hours and hours in a vector design program and make a series of rectangles that more or less approximates exactly what Apple had. So thank you, Apple, for the inspiration for this chip design, even though it doesn't reflect reality. And yes, I did draw every single line of that chip myself.
And I think a series of rectangles might be underestimating how many lines there are in this drawing.
I mean, they really are all rectangles. Like, it's a lot of rectangles. And the other thing that I discovered when drawing it is that Apple's drawings are not symmetrical. Like, when you see a bunch of lines that you think are evenly spaced, they're not actually evenly spaced. Because I was trying to do it on a grid with like grid snap, and I realized when I did the same number of lines as Apple, it would be like, they wouldn't line up correctly. Anyway, it's artisanally hand created. It's very interesting.
Yeah, I'm really, really excited for this. Way back when, it was one of our earlier shirt sales when we had done how would you describe this? I think this was Marco's idea, but it was a rounded rect outline that was approximately the proportions of the then new Apple Watch, and it said Accidental Tech Podcast on it. And we did this years and years and years ago. And I think this was the same shirt that we did the very first edition, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
And if you weren't around for that, we basically printed one, or had one printed in with like gold foil or something like that, which I don't think it was actual literal gold, but nevertheless.
No, we actually tried to make it literal gold, but and there are people who print in gold leaf, but like it wasn't going to work out. Like, there was some practical reason why like you kind of can't really do it. Like, it's technically possible, but it's a bad idea.
Right. So we had attempted to do that and it didn't work out. But one of the shirts we did was the sport shirt. And we did that in this, again, it's not literally Under Armour, but Under Armour style. Like, I don't know how to describe it that in a flattering way, because I would say like almost like a plasticky, but that sounds terrible. It's not plasticky, but nevertheless, we did that. And that is like my designated workout shirt. And I only bought one of them, so I use it a lot. And it needs brothers and sisters. So hence the ATP Performance shirt, which I'm really excited about. And again, that comes, like John said, in several different colors. And I cannot tell you enough how excited I am for the ATP pint glass. Years ago, Plex sent me a bunch of swag just to be nice because Plex is awesome. And one of them was a pint glass with a printed Plex logo on it. And it is my favorite pint glass. And even though I'm not a beer drinker, a pint is a perfect size for all sorts of beverages, for water, for soda, for any number of things, for mixed drinks if you're aggressive. So I am really excited to get this pint glass in the house and have some friends for my Plex pint glass as well. I am super stoked. This is all, again, until Friday, May 14th. I won't belabor the point, but please, if you're even thinking about it, now's the time. Pull over, stop what you're doing, atp.fm/store, atp.fm/join. And again, please go to your membership page or your member page and see what your discount code is and find your discount code and use that when you check out. Save yourself 15%. So thank you for entertaining us. I appreciate it. And we'll move right along and continue celebrating.
Before we continue, I wanted to thank Casey and reiterate that because I totally forgot. If you're an ATP member, you get 15% off. If you go to your member page and get your discount code, you actually have to go. We have a link to the member page on atp.fm/store. So you log in as your member, you go to your member page, there you see like your private feeds and all the other stuff, and you will also see your discount code. Copy and paste that discount code into the promo code field when you check out from the Cotton Bureau page, and that's how you get your discount.
Yep. Moving right along, we have other things that we need to celebrate. 2/3 of ATP have completed asterisk their journey on the vaccination train, which we'll talk about that in a second. But Marco, how you feeling, buddy?
Not great, Bob.
What is that from? I know the line, but what is that from?
Mad Men.
Okay. So you got your second shot yesterday?
Yeah. It's I've had friends who have had worse days after, but I'm not having the nothing reaction that I think many people have. Yeah, for sure.
I had a mostly nothing reaction. Erin also got her second yesterday, and she I think is on the same path that you are. She's not bad, but she's not feeling good.
On my desk in front of me are 2 Benadryl pills that I will be taking near the end of the show, which will start a timeline after. So I won't. But yeah, look. Let me start by saying I might have committed a crime.
Wonderful.
I gave false statements. They asked if I had had any of the symptoms recently, and I said no. But that wasn't entirely true. You see, my kid had a cold about a week ago. It was going around like the whole school, the whole town. Everybody has this cold, and it's not COVID. If people have been tested, it's fine. We know it's not that. This cold has hit me. One of the weird symptoms of this cold is that every night or most nights for the last 3 or 4 nights, I've gotten like hives on my arms and legs. It just itch for a while. I've never gotten hives in my life. I have mild allergies here and there. Never had hives for anything. So that's interesting. And it seems completely unrelated. Believe me, I've done the debugging of like, all right, what are the factors that have changed? What could this possibly be? Could it be food? Could it be laundry detergent? Like all that, everything. It's not. It's none of those things. Like nothing correlates in a direct way to this, except I did some research, and apparently hives are often the result of like certain viruses. Like sometimes you just get a cold, and one of the things it does to you is give you hives for the duration of the cold. I had never heard of this, but when you research hives, that's what turns up from like the more reputable sources, which by the way are hard to find. But anyway, so I decided, we had this appointment that was set from when we got the first shot. They automatically set you the second appointment 3 weeks later. And I thought, I can not get my second shot, but there's a risk in that like all the testing that's been done on the vaccines and the massive amount of data that we have that this thing is ridiculously, overwhelmingly safe. Like, I'm pretty sure you're more likely to die on the way to the vaccine site in a car accident than you are to die from the vaccine. I know that we've tested this very widely, but we've tested it with people getting a shot, once and then getting a second one 3 weeks later. If I get my second one 6 weeks later, then that's going to be a lot less tested of a situation.
You'll be fine. Like the 3 weeks is the soonest you can possibly give it because they're rushing to get the vaccine. Most vaccines, they wait 6 months to a year. So just FYI, I know it's too late now, but you could have waited a year and it would be fine.
Well, and I know logically, again, like the way mRNA vaccines work is so remarkably amazing and remarkably safe compared to, most other things. Like, I wasn't too concerned. I'm like, okay, that would be like an unknown. Or I could just go get it now, even though I kind of have a weird cold, and roll the dice on that risk. And I decided to do that instead because I wanted to get this done.
Your reasoning about health decisions is suspect on many levels. I mean, you're talking about the thing that's tested. They're asking those questions for a reason, presumably because they don't want you to take it when you have a cold, but you're okay doing that. Anyway, I'm sure everything is fine. I'm sure it's fine. I'm just saying I feel like your reasoning is not sound for any of this.
Well, regardless, maybe people don't always make the right decisions, but regardless, that's what I did. So I still have the weird nighttime hives on my arms and legs, but otherwise, like from the vaccine, I seem to only have worsened my cold by making myself extremely tired all day today. Just like really just like knocked out tired. But I don't have like the fever that everyone says they get and everything, so I think I'm doing okay. And ultimately, I mean, geez, I did 2 episodes of the show with COVID.
I was going to say, like, you're really on the COVID tour this year. You get the actual COVID, you get the vaccine. Now you're getting the second shot while you have some other cold. Like you're rounding all the bases here. So I think maybe you'll get a fourth or a third COVID shot in 6 months. Who knows?
Oh my word!
Thanks. Yeah, maybe I see this. I got the Pfizer. Maybe I get the Moderna one also, just for
why not? Just double up. All right, so we should start with some follow-up, and this relates actually to what we were just talking about. So this is one of those moments where I swear at some point I said something, but either it got cut or...
You totally said it got cut in the edit.
Okay, so I was going to say either it got cut in the edit or there was enough like distance between the thing that I said wrong and my in-show correction, which does happen sometimes. I'll say something 5 minutes into the show and then I'll correct it 10 minutes into the show. And we've already gotten inundated with emails after the 5-minute mark about how wrong I am, which, at that moment I was wrong, so that's fine.
And that's why it got edited out, because your correction was distant from it and Marco was trimming the fat. So anyway, go on.
Yeah, so last week I was making reference to being quote-unquote fully vaccinated, which I don't know if that necessarily is the wrong nomenclature, but it certainly presented the wrong implication. And I would just like to state clearly that, yes, even last week I knew that it's not until 2 weeks after your second shot, if you're on the 2-shot system, that you are considered completely and utterly vaccinated. All I was trying to say at the time, which again, I probably should have chosen better words, is I have received the mandatory 2 shots that I need. And this was at some point or another, this related to the Gruber term vaccinated, which I think is quite funny and I have embraced. When Gruber defined vaccinated as 2 weeks after your final shot. And so I am not yet vaccinated. I am halfway to vaccinated in the sense that I got my second shot about a week ago. So yes, you are not fully vaccinated until 2 weeks after your second shot. I am well aware of that. I am sorry that got cut in the last episode.
As am I, because it was probably my fault.
Well, like I said, I think I clarified. We went off on like a tangent, if I recall correctly, and then by the time I got the clarification...
Us?
Yeah, if you listen to the tangent, you see why it was cut, but that's where you put your correction.
Yeah, exactly.
Got it.
Yeah, us in a tangent? No.
Yeah, right. That never happens.
So, moving right along, sometime, what was it, just a day or two ago, who was this? Joanna Stern had an interview with Air Force One, otherwise known as Craig Federighi, and it was a pretty good interview. It was only 8 minutes long. You can find it on YouTube. And interestingly, at 7.25 minutes, Joanna asks him, "Hey, Tim has said that he's going to be out in 10 years. Are you going to be the next CEO?" And John, what did he say?
Also, here's the thing. Yeah, I would encourage everyone to watch this interview because it's really short, and also because his hair seems to be at half-mast. I don't know if he had. This is like the first bad CFED hair day I've ever seen.
Maybe it was like really humid there.
Yeah, it looked kind of like that. Or maybe he just got out of bed. I don't know. But that was the question. It's like, oh, your name's been floated as the next CEO, which is a topic that we discussed in the show a couple episodes ago. Who are the possible people who could be in line for next CEO? And when we discussed it, my attitude towards Federighi being the next CEO was like, it doesn't seem like something he's interested in, because he just seems like he's more interested in tech stuff, and I'm surely he knows how hard Tim's job is. I'm not sure he has any, it was all about like whoever was going to be CEO was going to really have to want that job, and it's a difficult job, and it's in many ways not as much fun as being the more technical level. So he got asked the question, and his answer was, "Get out of here." No, I think he said
irresponsible.
Yeah, that would be irresponsible. That's insanity. Forget it, right? But Watch the video. That's why I will have a timestamp link in the show notes that brings you directly to that question. You can see his answer. And what he says, the words, the transcript is, oh, that's silly, whatever. But the way he says it said, oh, CFED wants to be CEO. That was my read on it anyway. My read on it was, yes, it was a silly, oh, forget it. That's so ridiculous, right? But the way he said it makes me think he's open to the idea. So I'm starting to come around on that.
I still don't think that A, he would want it, or B, he should be the CEO, because we know him to some degree. The three of us have all met him at some point, right?
Yep.
I've had a couple of conversations with him, like WBCs and stuff. You can tell through and through he's a nerd like us. And a nerd like us should not be in the CEO of Apple in 2021 position. Because as I was saying, it's at this point, it's more of it's almost like a political and diplomatic kind of job on a lot of levels. And that's not a job for a nerd. That's a job for basically a tech-savvy politician.
Well, I was saying that because he's a nerd, he wouldn't want it because that's not what he's into. But in terms of could a nerd do that job well, here's the thing. Yes, he's the nerd, but he's so high up on the org chart that surely his last 2 or 3 jobs have been like 98% political, managerial, BS. It just so happens that he's also still super technical and super into that. But I think as Steve Jobs at least has shown, whatever it is that you're super into, you can still dig down on even when you're CEO. Like you can just kind of choose which things you delegate. You know what I mean? So that, I'm basing it off like the way he said like a 3-word answer. So this is obviously silly, right? But I no longer think it's ridiculous that he might be interested in it. And I don't think it's ridiculous that he might do an okay job at it. Just because his strengths are completely different than Tim Cook's, and Tim Cook's were completely different than Steve's, I think they're all inhabiting such a high level in the org chart that they all could do a reasonable job as CEO. They would just be very different kinds of CEOs.
I think that's true. And the rumblings I've heard from friends at Apple is that, I think some of them like CFED and some of them don't, but I've never heard anyone even think about breathing that he's not an incredibly smart man. Like, everyone universally, the friends of mine who like him, the friends of mine that don't, all say that he's extremely bright. And if you look at this interview, now granted, I'm sure it was heavily edited, but it seems like not only is he smart, but he's a very cool customer in a very Tim Cook sort of way. And I don't know that he would get the nod, and I'm not 100% convinced he would want it, but I do think if I were a betting man, I'd say he would definitely take a stab at it. And the other interesting thing is, he is extremely technical. I think it was Marco a second ago that said he's, a nerd's nerd.
He really, really is.
Right. He's still at least looking at code from time to time. And I think there have been times that rank and file engineers have had to be like, Craig, stop. Please don't make commits. No. Please stop. You have much more important things. That may be BS. I might be making that up, but I'm pretty sure that I have heard that stories about that, years, not too many years ago, that this is still a thing that happens from time to time. And he seems to really get it. So I only met him once. It was when Marco, if I recall correctly, you had spotted him across the field at the Bash when it was still in San Francisco. And all of a sudden you basically grabbed my arm and said, "Follow me, let's go." And I was like, what is going on? And next thing I know, I'm posing with Federighi and shaking his hand. And he was an extremely kind fellow. And so anyways, I would be surprised if he was the one to get the nod, but I wouldn't be surprised if he was interested in it.
I did pick up there was a little bit of oddity to his tone of reaction, but I attributed that to discomfort with the question as opposed to actually wanting the job. Because again, I've heard similar things, Casey, of that how he really is very involved with the tech. I can't imagine that he has any interest in doing all the other crap that the CEO has to do. He's really into the software and the tech. And he doesn't even seem to be that into a lot of the product design and product decision stuff, let alone the massive amount of operational and political stuff that CEOs have to deal with, financial stuff. There's so much stuff that CEOs have to do these days, especially the CEO of Apple in 2021 or 2031 or whatever it is. It's not a job that somebody who is very, very technical would probably really want to do, because honestly, he's probably really happy where he is, because where he is about as high up as you can go without having a lot more of that other stuff come into your job description that he probably doesn't want.
Yeah, I think, people always have aspirations. People are always enthusiastic in trying to get to the next big thing. But I totally hear what you're saying. I could go on with this conversation for another hour. We got a lot to go through, so let's just move right along. Apple TV. So calibration, I thought we had said this or implied this last episode, but I guess not. The whole thing where you calibrate the TV, which is, I guess, how we phrased it, you're not actually calibrating the TV itself. You're calibrating the Apple TV's output for your specific TV. The idea being that when your TV is tuned to the Apple TV, when you're using the Apple TV as your input, then it will look incredible because you've used your iPhone and the Apple TV in concert in order to tune the output for your specific TV. Is that a better way of describing it?
I mean, we did say that it adjusts the TV's outputs, but I didn't delve into what the implications of that are. I mean, the obvious first implication is that means that if you calibrate the Apple TV's output to look better on your TV, that only affects the Apple TV, because when you're not looking at the Apple TV, that was the only thing whose output you calibrated. Like, you're not calibrating the display device, you're calibrating the signal that comes over the HDMI cable into your display device and adjusting that signal to account for whatever weirdness there is in your display device. But when you use another display device like your game console or your cable box or whatever it is that you have, anything you did with the Apple TV is totally irrelevant because you were only basically telling the Apple TV to output different signals. Second thing is, perhaps less obvious, television sets, especially modern ones, have tons of adjustments that the Apple TV has no access to. There are tons of image processing things that happen on the TV itself, and there's nothing you can do to the output from the Apple TV to enable, disable, or adjust those features at all. And if your TV is super duper off, there's nothing the output of your HDMI signal can do to account for that. Or if it could account for it, it could just make it much worse, because if your red and your green are super low, the only way it can get it in balance is bringing your blue super low, and now your whole image level is down. And it's very, very complicated. All this is to say that you should actually calibrate your television and not calibrate the output of one of your HDMI devices to account for the idiosyncrasies of your television set. So please calibrate your TV if you want to do this. Now, all that said, this Apple thing is probably better than nothing. And if you watch most of your TV through the Apple TV, it might help some. But yeah, Quinn Nelson, Snazzy Labs, Snazzy YouTube channel, has an upcoming video about the Apple calibration versus a real calibration. I'm really curious to see what he finds. But my assessment of this Apple calibration thing right now is pretty low. So unless there's some very surprising results, I would say please calibrate your television and not just your Apple TV.
Sounds good. All right. The remote has a slightly rounded back, which I think I had seen before we recorded, but I don't believe we brought up last time. So that should be nice to at least be able to pick up the correct side facing upwards, which is definitely an improvement. How do you feel about that, John?
Yeah, I knew last time I said it had no acknowledgement of human hands. Here's a minor acknowledgement. Now, this Siri remote also had slightly curved sides, so you could pick it up with your fingernails off the table. This one is more of a uniform sort of U shape along the entire bottom. It's not sloped enough, and it's not like it's still not going to be, you're going to pick it up or you're going to feel like you're a giant and this is something for a toddler, because that's how small the remote is. But credit where credit is due, they slightly curved the bottom.
Indeed. And then Eric Weber writes that the original Siri remote was $80, but it was dropped to $60 with the refreshed white ring when the original Apple TV 4K was introduced in 2017.
So this remote is not cheaper than the Siri remote. It's only cheaper than the original Siri remote. So that's a shame.
There was a big brouhaha over the last several days that the new Siri remote does not have an accelerometer or gyroscope for gaming on the Apple TV, which is a bummer.
Yeah, especially since it costs the same amount, and it doesn't have a U1 in it, as we discussed last week. So I'm not sure where the extra money went. It's got a smaller touchpad, a similar number of buttons. It's made of aluminum instead of being aluminum, glass, and metal, or whatever the other one was. I don't know. Anyway, I don't quite understand why this lacks those features, other than like the touchpad's not big enough to play games with anyway, so why should they bother? But really, if you're going to play games on the Apple TV, you should buy a controller. You shouldn't use the Siri remote. And apparently you can't use this remote if the games require an accelerometer or a gyroscope.
Is anybody playing games on Apple TV?
I hope they're not playing them with the remote, if they are. I mean, I guess you can play Crossy Road with the remote. Any game that has one button.
We did. Like when it first came out, we played a lot of Crossy Road, we played Badland, but ultimately, like, we just kind of fell out of favor with the Apple TV as a gaming platform because we tried a bunch of games. I even bought 2 of the controllers, like from two different branded Apple TV, made MFI controllers, and the gaming scene is just so. It feels like back in the 90s when you bought the wrong system. Like it feels like you have like the 3DO and you're waiting for good games to come out and you're like, well, there's not a lot here.
Well, you're used to that being a Genesis person.
Oh, no way. Come on.
It was too easy. I couldn't resist.
No, it's more like a 32X. It's like you bought the 32X thinking, oh, there's going to be a lot of games for this, and then just nothing happens.
Well, if you subscribe to Apple One, you should at least check out Apple Arcade because they just added a whole infusion of games, including like a bunch of known good games from the pre-Apple Arcade days, only without ads and in-app purchase. So, if you're getting it for free anyway, you might as well check it out.
Yeah, so anyway, to come back to this lack of gyroscope and accelerometer, apparently if you try to play a game that requires it and you don't have a like proper game controller hooked up, the app will say, to play this game on your Apple TV, you need to connect the Apple TV remote, parenthesis, first generation, parenthesis, or a compatible PlayStation, Xbox, or MFI controller. If I were to read that as a regular person, I wouldn't have a clue what MFI meant.
I wouldn't have a clue what Apple TV remote, parentheses, first
That's
generation
true too.
means.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's a note about this that Apple TV remote is what it's called in countries where Siri is not available on the Apple TV, but otherwise it's called the Siri remote.
That's fair enough.
But no one knows what no one knows what Siri remote first generation is, and no one knows what Apple remote first generation is. But people do know what PlayStation, Xbox controllers are, so at least they have a fighting chance.
Somebody, Odin, wrote in with an interesting point about Apple TV pricing. So as everyone else has been, we've been lamenting the fact that it is a very expensive box to do the sorts of things that it does. And Odin writes, with regard to the pricing, neither the Apple TV doesn't come with an HDMI cable, so you can't even connect it to your TV right out of the box. Meanwhile, Google and Amazon's $30 streaming devices plug directly into an HDMI port.
Neither meaning like the 4K or the HD. Like it makes sense if you think about it for a second and you know how big the box is. Of course, there's not an HDMI cable in there. It's this tiny little box. It's just got enough room for the little puck and the remote. But it's another, you'll get it. You'll like, yay, here's this new Apple TV. Let me hook it up. And you realize unless you already have a spare HDMI cable, unless you disconnect another input and put this one in its place, there's something else you have to buy because, it's just not expensive enough to support the price of that cable.
It's pretty crummy. Did the Apple TV ever come with an HDMI cable? I don't remember.
No.
I don't think so. I think it's always maybe the one that was basically a Mac Mini. Do you remember that one?
I don't think that had HDMI output. I think that was component.
Maybe. I never had one. I don't remember.
But no, they never came with HDMI. I had one of those. They never came with HDMI cables.
And yes, the chat room asked, the PS5 does come with an HDMI cable. And it's good that it does because PS5 supports HDMI 2.1, and most people don't have an HDMI 2.1 compatible cable just laying around if they haven't bought AV equipment in a while.
Correction, it did have HDMI out.
we regret that.
It also had component, in my defense.
Yeah. It was the one that ran like Mac OS 10.4 or something.
Yeah, it was basically, it was like a little Celeron in there. It was a whole little like low-powered, like 400 megahertz Celeron computer or something like that.
And a hard drive, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
It was a little Mac. It ran Mac OS.
I do not remember this at all.
It was the one that it basically acted like an iPod. You had to like sync things to it from your Mac. And it was a whole thing.
I think it was introduced at the iPhone event in 2007, was it?
Yes, it was.
It was like
actually,
ITV, right?
Yeah, it originally was. Well, I think it was announced as ITV earlier that year, but I think they introduced it then as Apple TV because it was introduced. It was introduced at one event, or it was like previewed at one event, and then I think it was shown off at the iPhone event.
As bad as the current crop of Apple TVs are, this one was worse. So just be glad things have improved.
For the time, it was really interesting.
For the time, TiVo embarrassed it, so I'm not sure.
Oh, here we go. we need a different sound effect other than a ding for the TiVo. Like like a
I don't talk about TiVo much. I'm just saying, back when the first Apple TV came out, TiVo was just 1,000 times better.
Moving right along, John, tell me what is the deal with high frame rate HDR anyway? Like what is the story there?
We talked about that as a possible reason that Marco should get the fancy new Apple TV. Oh, don't you want to see high frame rate HDR video, meaning higher than 30 frames per second or whatever. And Chris Jennings tells us that apparently, according to his conversations with Apple support, which isn't always exactly correct, but according to these conversations from a theoretically knowledgeable Apple source in Apple support, you can get the high frame rate HDR features on the older Apple TV 4K too, that it's basically a software feature, not a hardware feature. Now, initially I thought, well, that can't be the case because only the new Apple TV 4K supports HDMI 2.1, and I know you need HDMI 2.1 to support 120 frames per second and stuff like that. But it turns out that even though the new Apple TV has HDMI 2.1, it only supports up to 4K at 60 frames per second. Even though HDMI 2.1, the standard, can do 4K at 120 frames per second, the fancy new Apple TV doesn't go higher than 60. And the old Apple TV 4K supported HDMI 2.0A, which stops at 4K 60. But I don't know if the old Apple TV 4K before the software update can do 4K 60. So anyway, it's still an open question, but it seems clear that if you're looking for 4K at 120 frames per second from your new Apple TV, it can't currently do that, even though technically the wire coming out of it can support that. I guess we'll just wait to have to get these things in our houses and see if we can play back 4K 60 frame per second HDR video on an old Apple TV 4K with the new tvOS update. But according to Apple support, that is a thing that can happen. The other theory I have is that maybe high frame rate HDR via AirPlay requires the new Apple TV, and it only works wired or downloaded to the thing with the old one. I don't know. It's very confusing.
Better get that 64 gig model in case it's only downloaded.
Goodness.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. All right. And Apple Care Plus is available for the first time for Apple TV, providing 3 years of technical support and additional hardware coverage, including up to 2 incidents of accidental damage protection every 12 months. It's $30 for all of that. And I first thought, why would one want this? But then it occurred to me, when I was still with a true jobby job, there were Apple TVs in like every conference room, and I would assume that this is a corporate thing.
No, you forget, or maybe you've been lucky enough not to know this. It's a stupid remote. The Siri remote was covered in glass, and people were shattering them all the time. It's not like your Apple TV. It's not like your Apple TV puck is going to get damaged, I hope. Like, it's usually just sitting with the TV or whatever. It's this stupid remote. Now, I think the new remote looks much, much sturdier because it's just aluminum and plastic buttons and there's no big glass thing. But I've seen so many pictures of completely shattered, like, the glass diving board on the Siri remotes. So I just wanted to bring this up just because if you're afraid of that happening, or if for some reason you're buying the one that still has the glass remote, you can actually get Apple Care for it. And I think the only reason this exists is because of all of the people breaking their Siri remote and then being super angry that it cost $60 or in the past $80 to replace the stupid remote that they just broke.
That's a good point. I hadn't considered that.
The chat room says that the Apple TV remote is not covered by Apple Care, or was not covered by Apple Care. I'm assuming this new Apple Care for the Apple TV covers everything. And when they say accidental damage, I'm assuming they include accidental damage to the remote. But if you have any questions, ask Apple to make sure before you buy it. But it is only $30.
Why? Is it very likely that you would accidentally damage the box?
I mean, I guess if it's in a conference room or being wheeled around on a cart and you drop it and it cracks, I don't know. Maybe you yank out the cable and it breaks the connector.
I don't know, man. But all I know is it's this coming Friday, which as we record is like a day and a half away, that I can finally order a new one, and I am super excited.
It is pretty funny though. Like there was like I think somebody wrote in to point this out, but like the new one isn't that much better than the outgoing one. Like, it's actually, most of the newness of it is the new remote, which you can now get for all of them, or you will be able to get for all of them, once the orders go up. And it's an A12 versus an A10X, but like the A10X and A12 are actually not as far apart as you would think. And
I did read that the A10X has a better GPU than the A12, which I'm not sure that I buy, but I mean, the A12 certainly will be lower power and for doing the same amount of work, I suppose.
Yeah, it seems like this was an update mostly to the remote. And Apple basically, speed bumped barely the box. And I'm okay with that because the remote was the biggest problem. I'm still amused at how bad the pricing is, and that they still offer 2 capacities. But, I'm hoping that the remote will be good, and we will find out. Honestly, though, I don't think I'm even going to buy the new box. I think I'm only going to buy the remotes. Because I look at the box, I'm like, well, what am I spending the extra $120 for the box for? I'm not really getting a lot for that, I don't think.
I can understand that.
Real-time follow-up, they were looking at the apple.com/support/product/Apple TV, and it says the Apple Care Plus does cover your Apple TV, included Siri Remote and power cord. It's not called Siri Remote anymore, Apple. Update your page. And up to 2 incidents of accidental damage. It looks like the remote is covered under the new Apple Care. And one more AppleCare thing here that I snuck in. This is not Apple TV related, but apparently now AppleCare Plus coverage for the Mac can be extended beyond 3 years. You just keep paying for it. So they always had the thing where you can pay like per month, but then you could also pay one lump sum and get the 3 years. Now at the end of the 3 years, you can just keep paying, I presume, on a yearly or monthly or whatever plan. We'll put a link in the show notes for more details on this. So if you have a Mac and you're always annoyed that even with the fancy AppleCare Plus, 3-year bulk purchase thing, it just ends after 3 years. Now you can keep paying and keep getting that AppleCare if you want to.
That's actually really nice. I would have definitely used that on my iMac Pro. I think, people who buy really expensive Macs and use them for more than 3 years, that's a really nice feature. I wonder how long will it go though? There has to be some limit, right? Because otherwise they would be Apple would therefore be on the hook to replace your 7-year-old Mac or something. There's probably some limit.
They have that time horizon where the products become obsolete or something in Apple parlance, and they're I'm sure there is a limit on it, but just going past 3 years is useful. And the longer you go, the more likely it is you're going to need that coverage. So if the price doesn't increase, which I don't think it does, I don't think it increases with time, other than just the normal sort of inflationary increases of AppleCare on all their products. It might be a good deal for people if they keep the Macs for a long time.
Hey, going back to the Apple TV for a second, I am going to be placing an order Friday morning. Why would I spend the extra $20 for the 64 gig one? I'm never going to play games on it. I can't remember a time I've ever downloaded anything to this.
You got to hold all the screensaver video.
You joke, but that actually is a reasonable answer because those screensavers are so good. But I don't think it's worth $20 to do that, is it? Why would I get the big one?
I think $20 is so little for doubling the storage. I just might get it anyway, just for the hell of it. But yeah, I have the aerial screensaver on my Mac, and I looked at how big the folder of downloads is, and it's 54 gigs.
Yeah, it's big. It is not small, especially for a computer with the monitor you have.
So, if you get the 32 gig Apple TV, you certainly won't have all of the screensaver video cached locally, and I know that's going to really pain you.
That's interesting.
With your
actually.
gigabit internet connection.
Exactly. Yep. All right. Well, we'll see how I feel. But sitting here now, I think I'm just going to get the 32. All right, moving on to the iMac. The power brick / cable, this was brought up, I think I first saw this with Jason Snell. He apparently cut I think it was a 2-meter string and hung it off the back of his standing desk while it was in standing mode. And he said that the power brick would probably be dangling in the air because the 2 meters isn't quite enough for his particular standing desk, which is kind of a bummer.
What is this meters business? Analog is affecting you. We're talking about feet here, okay?
Sorry, John.
2 meters is not the same thing as 6 feet. Yeah, so Jason did bring this up when he was trying to see, in my standing desk, if I had a 6-foot cord coming out of the back of my iMac, would the brick reach the ground or would the brick be dangling in midair? And his measurements indicated that the power brick would kind of be dangling in midair, which is not ideal. He did an interview on Upgrade with the Apple folks and brought this exact issue up and said, hey, it's a 6-foot cord. I just measured that won't be quite long enough for my setup. How did you come up with 6 feet? And the Apple people said, well, we looked at all different setups and we came out that we thought this was the blah, blah, blah. But Jason had just got done telling them, it's well, this may fit the AirPods fit the average ear, but not fitting Marco's ear. This may be sort of the sweet spot for satisfying the most people. But it doesn't work in Jason's setup, and I don't think Jason's, because Apple acknowledged standing desks. It's not like they didn't think about standing desks. They did, but Jason's not that tall, and his desk is not that high. So I feel like they put an extra 6 inches to a foot on this cord would probably be beneficial for people who use standing desks.
It would be a lot more beneficial for people who use standing desks? Why are you running more than one cable off the desk?
Oh, yes. You'll have to Velcro things to the bottom of your desk. Here we go.
Yes. Somehow zip tie or otherwise attach a surge strip under your desk to the underside of your desk. Plug everything on your desk into that. Tie up all the loose, cable excess so it's nice and tidy somewhere. And then run one cable, or maybe two if you include Ethernet, from that area of your desk down one of the lifting legs or whatever you can have it run down cleanly to the outlet. And then you can have a huge amount of slack in that second, cable grouping of, just the Ethernet and power coming out of the desk, and all the stupid little short cables you can plug into the underside of your desk and have everything nice and tidy.
So this is a setup for people who have more than just the iMac on their desk, but part of the beauty of having the single cable coming out of your iMac, you don't even need Ethernet back there and everything, I think if you just have an iMac in a lone scenario like that, you don't need the whole power strip underneath the desk. Maybe you just have the one cord. And maybe those people don't use standing desks. I don't know. I'm just saying, like, it's the fact that it's so close to working with a standing desk, but just needs a few more inches, seems like they could fix that in a subsequent revision. The second thing to know about the power brick is we were speculating about, hey, they could have used USB-C because USB-C power delivery can do 100 watts. Apparently, the power brick is rated for 143 watts. Now, that doesn't mean the iMac or any of the iMacs they introduced, in the Apple event, will actually ever consume 143 watts, but that's what the brick is rated for. So maybe Apple knows something we don't. Maybe they're just trying to have one brick and reuse it. Maybe they're thinking ahead because the next version might use more power than this one did. I don't know. But either way, the bricks makes me think that Apple thinks that 100 watts is not sufficient for the system, either in the present or the future.
It's interesting. Tell me about Visa mounts, because apparently you can flip-flop, sort of, kind of.
Yeah, I don't know if we mentioned Visa mounts at all, but just FYI, like the old style iMacs, these new colored ones, you can also get them with a Visa mount. If you don't like the non-adjustable little foot, you can get a Visa mount on the back and then put it on whatever arm or stand or anything else you have that supports Visa. And apparently, according to Jason Snell, you can call AppleCare, and if you buy a Visa mount iMac and say, I don't want the Visa mount anymore, can you swap it for the foot version? Now, no idea how much that would cost. Obviously, it would cost you some money. I assume they just replaced the entire back of the computer. But the good thing is the computer is basically a giant iPad anyway, and so the back is just like the entire big back shell, and maybe it's an easy repair. I don't know, but it's nice to know that you're not stuck with the Visa mount permanently if you buy one and then change your mind later.
Indeed. And then someone wrote in to ask, hey, does anyone else wish that they would add the Ethernet port to all Mac power adapters? For example, the notebooks would be nicer than a dongle. Don't we all want that? Or is it just me? I guess not literally just me, but...
I mean, it depends on your setup. I can see the appeal because we don't like dongles, right? And you have to have the power brick with you anyway, and there's plenty of room on the power brick for the Ethernet connector. But on the other hand, people tend not to like to crawl around under their desk and plug things in. And with an iMac, it's not a big deal. You do it once. It's a desktop. You set it up and you're done. But with a notebook, you're bringing it from place to place. Maybe if you had multiple power adapters in the house and you could set up the Ethernet at once and just have the power cord kind of stick it up on your desk, it would be cool. I can see the appeal. And maybe that is Apple's plan. Again, they made a 143 watt adapter. Maybe this adapter will also come with some other future computer. But the tricky bit is you need to route Ethernet to the power brick, and all of Apple's current power bricks don't do that in terms, I don't think they even have the right number of conductors. I think they're just power from the power brick. I'm not entirely sure, but my impression is that from the power brick...
That's not entirely true. They support only USB 2 transfer speeds, though. So, like, whatever Apple labels as a charge cable for USB-C, it can be used as data, but not for USB 3 speeds.
Yeah, and so, of course, they could put out an adapter that would support this. The other wrinkle in this, and we're not going to talk about this week, but there's a bunch of leaks from some ransomware attack on a manufacturer that supposedly show the rumored MacBook Pros with all the things that we talked about in past shows: SD card slot and MagSafe
and HDMI.
Yeah, and HDMI, right? If those things end up having MagSafe, of course, Apple can do whatever it wants with this, whatever this new MagSafe is, but that would mean that they would need to route Ethernet through the MagSafe adapter along with power down the power cable to the power brick where the supposed Ethernet port is. So I think there's some merit to this idea, but it seems complicated enough that unless Apple is really married to it, that they're, especially if they're going to MagSafe, it just seems simpler for them to just bring back MagSafe as just a power thing and then continue to rely on dongles for everything else.
Yeah, and if you actually want a single cable solution, I would assume and hope that if this new, MagSafe-based MacBook Pro thing is real, or even if it isn't, assuming future MacBook Pros might have MagSafe, I would hope that they would also still be able to charge via USB-C PD. And if that's the case, then people who want a single cable solution, but some kind of port expansion, can continue to use like Thunderbolt docks and stuff, and still have just one cable running to the computer that also charges it.
Yeah, I will be, even though I think MagSafe would be great to bring back for notebooks, it will bum me out ever so slightly if USB-C power delivery goes away. If it's one or the other, not both. And especially since we're all approaching this like USB-C lifestyle where everything is USB-C. I mean, there's so much of my life other than my iPhone that is USB-C, and just having a USB-C dongle sitting around can power, my iPad, my computer, my drone, etc., my Switch. And man, it would really stink if MagSafe got reintroduced, which would be excellent. And then they said, well, that's the only way you can charge now. Tough noogies. That would really bum me out.
Yeah, agreed. And I hope and I bet they would probably keep both.
One would hope and one would think. All right. And then finally, Eric Berlin writes, what's the benefit of having 4 high-efficiency cores in a system without a battery like the iMac or Mac Mini, aside from economies of scale? Do you expect there to be a split between desktop and laptop versions of future Apple M series systems on a chip? I mean, one silly answer is it's just more efficient. Like, as silly as that sounds, but why run a, higher wattage core and why expend all that energy if you don't have to? I mean, I know that's kind of silly, but it does add up over time, doesn't it?
I mean, it makes sense from more than just an electric bill perspective. It's you know me, it's all about fan noise, right? If you can use, most of the time your Mac is not doing much if you're not running some big, hard task in the background that's using lots of cores. So from moment to moment, those efficiency cores are getting a ton of use because, especially when you're just sitting there reading text on a web page, there's probably, hopefully, unless you're running Chrome with a bunch of terrible tabs in the background, no need for the high efficiency cores to be enabled at all. And if you can just use the efficiency cores or 1 or 2 of the efficiency cores, it uses less power, yes, and that means less heat, and that means less fan noise. Now, Eric is right that the reason they're using it is because this is the architecture they have, and they're not gonna, it's not, apparently we now know the answer. Is it worth it for them to make for the low end iMac an entirely different chip, even though the current M1 fits fine? No, not worth it to them. They could have made a chip without efficiency cores and with 6, high performance cores or something, right? And that would be extra expense, and maybe they'd get a little bit of benefit, but for the low end iMac, it was not worth it. So yes, economies of scale. There are many different computers you can wrap around the M1, and the iMac is one of them, and it's perfectly fine for that. And as a bonus, less fan noise, less heat, less electricity. Probably less electricity is non-measurable, but I imagine the less heat and less fan noise is something that they could actually measure. So I'm glad that efficiency cores exist, and I think there's a place for efficiency cores on every single one of their desktop computers, even the big giant Mac Pro that they eventually make with umpteen cores or whatever. It's okay to have some efficiency cores in there because sometimes the Mac Pro is not doing anything that big either.
And that brings us to another computer that has an M1 and it's as its core, and that is the iPad. And so there's some follow-up we need to talk about with regard to the iPad, starting with the front-facing camera. Tell me about that.
We did. I think we missed this entirely in the event show. There was so much stuff. But Apple talked about Center Stage, which is their way to use the new 12-megapixel front-facing wide camera on the new iPads to take a very wide view of what's in front of them, but then crop it to show the area of interest when doing video conference type things. And they showed it with one person in the picture, it will center on them. And then when more people come, it will expand the image. Now, the camera doesn't move. It's not like it's actually zooming optically. It's not pivoting from side to side. It is merely taking different crops and doing image processing, using the software to do some smarts. And obviously the crops are going to be lower resolution than the full 12 megapixels, but apparently there's enough pixels to go around to make this work, especially for a FaceTime thing. So it looks like a very cool feature. And the other thing to know about it is that this feature is actually available to other people through an API. So if you have any kind of third-party app and you want to start taking video from the front-facing camera, apparently there's an API that you can just tell it, please do that center stage thing where you look for people's faces and try to include them, which is very nice of them to include. Although, honestly, I'm not sure what other apps people use for doing video conferencing on the iPad besides FaceTime, and I guess Zoom, maybe? But do people use Zoom on the iPad? I guess so.
Yeah.
Well, Declan spends several hours a day in Teams on the iPad.
Oh, in Teams? Seriously?
Yep.
My God, I didn't even think about that. Children shouldn't be subjected to Teams.
No, it is bad. It is real bad on the iPad.
I hope those apps do use those features, though, because that is a problem, especially with an iPad where you're trying to, prop it up at the right angle and make sure you get everyone in the picture, doing, mostly for me it's doing family FaceTime calls, but I suppose for, other things that are not family and maybe you're using Teams or what do you call it, WebEx or, Zoom or whatever. So that's cool and worth mentioning.
Indeed. Hey, John, how much RAM do you have in your iPad?
We noted this on the event show, but we didn't really emphasize, right? So yes, the iPad comes with 2 different amounts of RAM. But the most important thing is Apple lists those two different amounts of RAM on their web pages and in their promotional material. For the first time, the amount of RAM in an iPad is not a secret that Apple won't tell you, even though everybody knows what it is. They actually use it in their advertising material. It's on their slides. Up to 16 gigabytes of memory. We should all, if we were there live, we all should have gasped and said, oh, the iPad has memory? I thought it just had storage. All these years, if we've just been buying iPads based on storage, now you're going to tell me there's memory? Yeah, it's like when they changed from iOS firmware, from iPhone firmware to iOS. It's like the iPhone has an operating system. I thought it just had firmware. It's like a secret. So I like this. Obviously, this is just on the Pro models. I think they still don't talk about RAM on the lesser iPad models. But see, Apple, nothing bad happens if you talk about RAM. We all know it's in there, and we have to figure out what it is anyway. Eventually, it's just annoying that it's not on your product pages, and now it finally is, at least for the pros.
So speaking of iPad Pros, apparently the new 12.9-inch iPad Pro, specifically the 12.9, won't work with the original $350 Magic Keyboard. So it's just a bit thicker than the last one was, and because of that, officially speaking, it is not compatible with the Magic Keyboard that came out before this new one existed. However, if you were to buy a Magic Keyboard today, it is compatible with every iPad that has ever been compatible with the Magic Keyboard.
Yeah, that's a shame, but I still think they made the right move. Some people were saying, oh, but didn't you know how thick the new 12.9-inch iPad would be when you made the original Magic Keyboard? I think it's conceivable that no, they didn't. Maybe they were shooting for, it'll be the same width. But we talked about the screen tech in this new 12.9-inch iPad with the 2,500 different zones and 10,000 LEDs. That screen is amazing, and it's worth putting on the highest of the high-end iPad. And if they had to make it 0.5 millimeters thicker to pull that off at the cost of breaking compatibility with their very expensive Magic Keyboard, I still think that's the right move, because this is the most expensive iPad with the highest end, you can get it 16 gigs of RAM and 2 terabytes of storage and all that stuff. Obviously not ideal. I don't think Apple planned this. I think they probably tried to make it exactly the same size, and they just couldn't quite get it. And if the choice was between this screen and being compatible with the Magic Keyboard, I'd take the screen any day. So it's a bummer, but I think the right move.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm surprised and happy that they haven't changed the keyboard size for the 11-inch. I mean, this is the longest they've ever gone. If you're an 11-inch customer, this is the longest you've ever been able to carry any peripherals forward. Normally, if you were buying a new iPad Pro, or you would have to buy a new keyboard, possibly even a new pencil, depending on when you bought it, if you use the pencil or not. And those things are so expensive. They add up pretty quickly. So this is actually a nice, constant period here where if I bought a new iPad, which honestly I'm not going to, but if I bought a new iPad, I would still be able to use my same keyboard from 2 years ago.
Yeah, and people who are second guessing this, it's helpful to think about the other scenarios that could have happened, which is, let's say they're targeting to make it exactly the same width, and they build one and they say, here it is with the new screen and the new guts, and it's exactly the same dimensions as the old one, and they have some kind of problem. Oh, it's like overheating in this area, or this thing is very close to shorting out, or there's some other problem, and they say, well, the only way we can solve this is to make the thing 0.5 millimeter thicker to give a little bit more breathing room. And everyone's like, oh, but that's going to break compatibility with the thing. You would much rather have them make the thing thicker than to say, well, let's just shove it in there and just hope for the best, because whatever the problem may be with overheating or shorting or compressing or bulging or causing discoloration on the screen because of stress, you don't want any of those problems. And if that was the reality and they said, well, they did that because if they didn't do that, the keyboard wouldn't work, you'd be saying, what a ridiculous notion. Who cares if the keyboard works? I just want my iPad to work. I don't even have that keyboard. This is absolutely the right move. It's a bummer, but sometimes that happens when you're pushing the envelope, which I feel like Apple is with this don't call it a tablet, iPad that is just tremendously fast and has an amazing screen on it.
Indeed. Last week, we were talking about potential uses for AirTags, which actually, speaking of, before we get to this follow-up, Marco, did you order any AirTags?
You can order them? Yeah.
Oh,
yes, that's right. I did.
Wow.
Sorry.
Are you feeling well, bud?
Fever's setting in.
A little warm. No, it's just, I forgot. Yes, I did order a 4-pack. It's coming on whatever day one is, which I think is it this Friday?
It's either this or next, I think. I don't recall, to be honest with you. So the reason
I'll have it next Monday.
All right. The reason I don't recall is because I ordered a 1-pack, which at the time was delivering in mid-May. And I thought about getting a 4-pack, but I don't even know what I'm using one for. So it seems silly to buy 4 just on a lark. But I did order one, and it'll be here several weeks after your 4-pack is. John, what about you? What did you order, if any?
Didn't order any because I still can't think of what I'm going to use it for. So I'll listen to your reports on what it's like to have a little plastic puck.
It is kind of, I would have been very surprised if you would have told me before the Apple event that the only things I would buy as a result of this Apple event were AirTags and a new Apple TV remote. But that's honestly that's what I'm in this for those things.
Yeah, that's a fair point. So anyway, we were asking, what would we use these for? And something that I had thought of, but I didn't say on the show. This was not Marco's fault this time. I definitely did not say it out loud. And this was also provided to us by Jameson on Twitter. A use case for AirTags, watching your luggage work its way back to you at the carousel at the airport. Now, I vaguely remember where airports are, and I vaguely remember what luggage is, but nevertheless, that is a very good use case for it. Another thing that a few people have suggested, including just now in the chat, is placing it in or around a favorite stuffed animal from a child. Because if you're a parent, especially when they're young, they have that special stuffed animal that if they lose that stuffed animal, your next week to month is going to be terrible. So a lot of people are saying they're thinking about sewing one in the animal or putting it, around the animal or whatever the case may be. And again, I'm talking about a stuffed animal.
If you put it inside the animal, though, your kids will just tear it open and pull out the stuffing and get that thing out and then just destroy it.
Probably. But nevertheless, that's another idea.
If your kids are dogs.
I would say also on the following your luggage through the airport thing, we don't know yet how frequently the location is updated and what kind of range they have in practice yet. I would wait, if that's the kind of use case you have in mind, I would maybe wait and see how these things actually perform in reality.
I'm assuming people are expecting that to be in U1 range by that point. You're not looking to say which baggage carousel is in it. You just wanted to know is it coming off the thing now or whatever. You're right. Someone would have to test it, but I'm guessing that this use case is only useful when you're within U1 range. And I don't know what U1 range is, but certainly it's less than the passerby had Bluetooth on range.
Yeah, I would expect it to be something like 30 feet, because it's Bluetooth based. And yeah, so I'm guessing it's something like that, but I wouldn't expect it to be like...
Yeah. And you don't need this for Boston's Logan Airport. You don't need this AirTag thing at all, because I can just tell you, just get a chair. Your luggage is not coming out for an hour.
Well, that's what you get for living in Boston. Hey-o. All right, moving right along. Something that I think all of us knew, but again, did not say actually on the show, is one of the problems with Apple's premium podcast offering is what if you don't have an iPhone? Tough noogies?
Yeah, we were talking about who are you excluding by, using this Apple Premium Podcast. And we talked mostly about, hey, if any of your listeners don't use the Apple Podcast app, they have to start using it because that's the only way to listen to your show if it's a Apple Premium Podcast. But many people are in to say, and yeah, what about all the people who don't even have iPhones? Of course, they can't use Apple Podcasts and they can't listen to your show at all. And there's tons of those people. One of the reasons I didn't mention this was something that I should have mentioned when we talked about the Premium Podcast is I'm basing this on nothing, but my impression and hunch is that Apple is at least considering the notion of making Apple Premium Podcasts available on Android. I know this seems weird to you, but I just assumed that they would eventually make it available on Android, and then I saw everyone else thinking that they never would. It just seems like Apple Music, like a sort of audio service type thing. I know Apple doesn't do a lot of things on other platforms. They made Safari for Windows and then gave up on it or whatever, but Apple Premium Podcast for Android does not seem like a ridiculous thing to me. Now, obviously, they don't have that now, so don't assume it's going to exist. But I don't know if you two feel the same way. It just seems to me that it's not such a ridiculous notion.
No, I don't think it's a ridiculous notion. It would take a lot of motivation, though. The reason why Apple brought Apple Music to Android, they did, right? That's the thing they actually did.
Yep,
yeah.
I believe so.
We've never talked about it after they did it, so I kind of forgot. But
it's like Safari on Windows. When it went away, it probably took a while for me to realize it went away because who uses Safari on Windows?
Right. Yeah. So I don't know how well Apple Music on Android would be doing, but the reason they did that is because Apple Music is a massive service that brings in significant revenue into their services division and everything. Premium podcasts, I don't think, I could be wrong, But the way they've launched, at least their version of premium podcasts, I don't see that becoming anywhere near the size of Apple Music as a business. And therefore, I think there would be a lot less financial motivation for them to invest into the engineering of that. The Apple Music or the Apple Podcasts app is not just a big web view. It's a whole bunch of native code in there. And so it would be substantial work for them to bring over that app as its own thing. So I don't see it happening, honestly.
I mean, it kind of depends a little bit on the competitive landscape. Not that we're probably not going to have time to talk about it this episode, but Spotify's new premium podcast move is an interesting counter to what Apple has done and is different in all sorts of ways. And you're right, it's mostly small potatoes, and the safe bet is that they're not going to do it, but they might eventually see it as a strategic thing that they have to do just to keep Spotify at bay. It also depends on how all of the antitrust stuff related to Spotify and other stuff turns out. So all I'm saying is that this is right, that you are excluding people who have Android, but that I don't think it's completely ridiculous that Apple might someday put their premium podcasts on Android.
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends a lot on like how well is Apple Music doing on Android. I've never heard of anybody using it. I'm sure there are some people who do, but I would bet it's not a substantial market for them. I
mean, and I think one of the big reasons that Apple Music exists on Android is, interestingly, as a counter to Spotify, not in the podcast space, obviously, just in the plain old music space. And I think you're probably right that it's maybe not doing that well on Android. But like, why does it exist at all? You said it's because Apple Music is a big business. I think a big part of it is also because Spotify is there. And if we're going to compete with Spotify, kind of like the Apple TV thing, if we're going to compete at all, we can't be stingy and say, oh, it's only on Apple platforms. It's like if you're gonna be some kind of service type thing, you've got to be everywhere.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, and part of it also, it might just be as simple as like Apple Music was born out of Beats Music, and Beats Music was available on Android. So maybe they had an easier path to get there. Maybe they didn't have to build as much as we think they had to build from scratch for that.
They should give Android the old podcast app with the reel-to-reel tape.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, from iOS 5.
Yeah.
Oh man, that would be funny. All right. John, do you want to tell me about your Eero and smart outlet situation, please?
This is so long ago, I don't know if people still remember. I did a whole big RecDiffs episode about it, so I'm not going to go into too much detail. But to catch everyone up, I had fiddled around with my network and made my Eero my router and got rid of an Airport Extreme. And everything worked except for my smart outlet, which was completely invisible. And I was trying to debug it and couldn't figure out what the deal was. Here's what eventually worked. Why did it work? Unknown. But here's what eventually worked. It was a suggestion I got from two different places. Merlin suggested that I do this, and I didn't follow his suggestion. And then I got the same suggestion from a person at the smart outlet company. And the reason I did it when the person in the smart outlet company said it was not because like, oh, I trust that person more than Merlin, but it was simply because I needed to respond to their email. And when I respond to any kind of email where people give debugging suggestions, I have to tell them, I tried your suggestions and here were the results, like truthfully. And one of their suggestions was hardware reset the outlet, which I had done many, many times before. But I had not, this is two different ways to reset. It's like a soft reset and a factory reset, depending on how long you hold down the little buttons or whatever. I had not factory reset the new outlet, the new one that I bought that just came out of the box. Now you may be thinking, why would you need to factory reset an outlet that you just brand new took out of a box? That's never been on your network, like that's never even been seen by anything on your network, that is invisible. Like, I haven't even been able to attempt to connect it because every time I do, it says looking for devices, can't find anything, right? But that's what I did. I factory reset the new outlet, and it just joined right up and worked perfectly. Right?
Oh my goodness!
Now, here are the theories we've got behind this. One theory is that there is, apparently for this brand of smart outlet, there is a server-side component associated with your account, because I think you have to sign into your account to use their iOS app. And the person at the smart outlet company says we deleted like all your data on our server side. So we've all maybe that was a factor, right? The second thing is, and this is something I didn't know, and I just don't know the details of it, that apparently HomeKit devices can only be in provisioning mode, like where they're ready to be like added to your network or whatever, for a limited amount of time. And I think it's like a security thing. Like you don't want to allow them to be in provisioning mode indefinitely, because you could like put something in provisioning mode and like your neighbors accidentally pick it up a week after you tried to connect it and they connect it to their thing, right? So there's some kind of time limit as part of the HomeKit spec. If you want to be a HomeKit compliant device, you can only be in provisioning mode for a limited amount of time. after which you need to do some kind of reset to get them out of that. And maybe this particular smart outlet needs a factory reset after it has reached its provisioning mode time limit. And I can tell you that if there is a time limit, I'm surely past it, because I've been trying to add these things to my network for, days and days, just constantly having them and like ready to be added to your network. Make sure this light is blinking, right? So those are the theories. Server side, or it was stuck in provisioning mode too long and timed out. But whatever it is, a factory reset of the brand new thing made it work. And now I have the old one, which I have no use for. It's just sitting here. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it. I haven't even tried to connect it, but now I'm just not touching anything because my network, everything's on my network just like I want it to be. I haven't had any of that Teams problem in all my Teams meeting at work. I have yet to, have the problem recur, although it hasn't been a month yet, but so far so good. My networking house is in order.
That's good. I'm very glad for you.
Don't touch it.
Yeah, definitely don't touch it. I'd actually like to make a brief request for help. I, in the process of doing this screened-in porch, selected, I don't remember talking about this on the show, but I selected 2 not cheap ceiling fans in order to put in the screened-in porch. And there was a little bit of a disagreement as to whether or not these not cheap ceiling fans were worth the money that we spent. And one of the things I wanted to do with these ceiling fans was use them with Lutron Caseta switches. And I thought I was buying the appropriate kind of fan in order to use them with Lutron Caseta switches, and it turns out I did not. And many hours of investigation and fiddling about later, what I've realized is these particular fans use some sort of proprietary radio frequency controller. So there is something in the wall, and it is connected to the fan, but the actual commands to go on, off, or different speeds or whatever are radio frequency. And what I'd like to do is figure out a way to get that on HomeKit. These fans are Kickler fans, Kichler. Kickler doesn't seem to believe that HomeKit exists or even Alexa or anything like it. So if you have a way that you are aware of that you can make a RF device talk HomeKit, please let me know. Casey Liss on Twitter, or you can find my contact information on my website. I'd love to know, because I've been looking at this Broadlink RM4 IR and RF universal remote, which I guess is basically, it's supposed to just, emit IR or RF in order to control things that really you're not supposed to be able to control. And I'm looking at this, but I don't know if it's going to work with the appropriate frequencies, blah, blah, blah. So I will stop here. But just if you've experienced anything like this, please let me know. I would love to know about it. Our, I think, final bit of follow-up? Our final section of follow-up is with regard to Marco's refusal to believe that there's anything other than Tesla superchargers in the world. And friend of the show, Sam Abelsamid of the Wheel Bearings podcast, wrote in to say that Tesla accounted for about 2/3 of EV sales in the U.S. in the last year. But according to Sam, whose job is to know these sorts of things, that share is likely to shrink significantly in 2021 and beyond. There's lots of new competitors arriving this year and next from all the legacy brands. And then moving on, Sam writes, for distribution, there are currently 3,440 CCS, which I believe is the connector type, DC fast charger locations with 6,534 actual outlets. So it's about 3,500 locations with about 6,500 outlets across the United States. There are 1,000 supercharger locations, so about 1/3 as many locations. However, they have about 10,000 outlets, so about twice as many outlets. So Tesla has fewer locations, but more chargers per station. Something I don't think we've mentioned on the show is that Electrify America was done in part because Volkswagen was compelled to fund it as a result of Dieselgate. And Electrify America was the first network to implement the plug and charge standard, which allows drivers to set up one account for their compatible vehicles. So Ford, Volkswagen, Mercedes, Lucid, and Rivian have all announced support and more coming, and then they let you just plug it in, and then it authenticates and starts charging just like a supercharger. And we'll put a link in the show notes to a list of all the chargers and networks and whatnot at the Department of Energy website for the United States. Do you want to jump in here, Marco? Because I know you have some feedback, or do you want to plow forward?
A quick little thing on this point. So my car is still in the body shop, and they haven't even been able to start to work on it because insurance companies are apparently terrible. But
Neat.
So it's been almost a month, and they haven't actually started working on it yet because of my insurance company. So that's okay. I mean, I guess it was my fault for going with the totally fly-by-night insurance company, Allstate.
I also use Allstate, and you
don't get to be a big insurance company by just giving out money for free. The insurance company does not want to pay a lot for this muffler.
Yeah, nice.
Anyway, so we're still driving around the i3, and we had an opportunity to stop and supercharge, and I specifically sought out an Electrify America location because there was one kind of near where we were going, and so we were down to about 30-something% on the i3. We stopped off. It looked almost like a supercharger. You know, they had these big, glowing white bays across the back of this mall parking lot. There were 8 plugs in this location, so it looked pretty nice, and it was a pretty good experience. It was significantly nicer than the ChargePoint one that I had used before, and it was super easy. I walked up to the thing, and I plugged it into the car, and they had a little credit card contactless / chip reader on the front. So I just did Apple Pay on the front of it. I didn't have to make an account. I didn't have to do anything. All I had to do was Apple Pay with my credit card, Apple Pay with my phone rather. Wave it in front of their little reader. Beep. It started up, and then I was able to watch both in my car and also on their screen. They had a giant glowing screen to show my car's charge level. I guess the car communicates its charge level back through the CCS connector to the charger. So it was able to give me a time estimate. It was able to give me a percentage readout and everything. It allowed you to type in a phone number and it would text you updates. That way, like in case you wanted to leave and go inside the mall or whatever, you could do that and see when it's done. And overall, it cost me about $10 to charge from something like 30% to about 90%. This is not a large range car. That's something like 100 miles of range, but it was about a half hour, like not bad at all. It was a surprisingly nice supercharger competitive experience. And if every DC fast charger was as nice as the Electrify America ones, then I think that would be a really nice world to get to. I don't think we're there yet, and I think it's going to be a while before we get there. But when and if that kind of world arrives for the non-Tesla charging needs, that will be very nice and very compelling. So I really enjoyed it. It was very nice to use, and I would gladly use it again. However, again, when I look for things like this in the areas I travel, the Tesla superchargers are still they're still better coverage of the areas I go, and they're in more convenient locations. Many kind of an underappreciated part of charger location selection is, well, what can you do during the half hour that you're waiting there? If it's in like a travel plaza or something like off the highway, that's great because then you can park your car, and the thing is, like, you're only going to be charging there for maybe a half hour to 40 minutes. You can't do something that's going to take you 2 hours. You can't watch a movie or anything like in a movie theater, but you also don't want it to just be like in the back of an empty parking lot where there's nowhere to even within walking distance that you could really meaningfully go. So you want something to do, and I like the travel plaza kind of situation because then you can go in, use the bathroom, order food, maybe have a quick snack, get a crappy coffee at Starbucks, go out to your car, and it's pretty much time. Tesla seems to be significantly better, at least with the more recent round of superchargers, significantly better at choosing good locations that actually give you some reasonable way to use your 40 minutes that you're going to have while sitting there. That's one thing that so far the non-Tesla fast chargers around here are not super great at. But I mean, that could just be a regional difference. But anyway, it's something to look at. Like when you're comparing, if you're looking at electric cars, if you're comparing the charging networks, you definitely have to, I think, look at which ones you're likely to use and where they actually are, what kind of environment they're actually in, because that matters a lot.
Like Sam said, though, this is changing rapidly because all the EVs from all the car companies are coming out pretty fast and furious now. And most of them, granted, are not actual cars. They're stupid SUV things, but there's a ton of them. And Electrify America and all the other sort of car brand charging networks are just going to be expanding extremely rapidly. And it's not just one company doing it. It's multiple companies doing it. So I expect this to be a very dynamic situation. In fact, I was surprised to see there was 3 times as many CCS DC fast chargers because this is trying to compare like to like and not just say like any old thing, but the DC fast chargers. And I'm also surprised to see that a bunch of car brands, like we talked about this one, let me get the pronunciation right because I saw a video. Taycan.
Nice.
They have 2 syllables in their word, and neither one of them is pronounced the way that an English speaker would expect them to say. But Porsche has a YouTube video that says tie like a necktie, and then con like the opposite of pro. Taycan Taycan, which has this 800-volt system that allows it to charge faster and stuff. I recently saw a review of the new Hyundai Ioniq 5, which is another SUV type thingy or whatever. And I think it has an 800-volt system too, and it's not a fancy car. Like it's competing with the mainstream SUVs, right? It's more expensive than a gas SUV, but still it's not a $100,000 car. And those 800-volt systems can charge a lot faster. So the amount of time that you spend at the chargers may actually be decreasing, assuming we can get these 800-volt, like whatever it is, 250 kilowatt or whatever. I get confused with battery specs for laptops. If those start to proliferate. And the other thing I'll say about your charging experience is your car doesn't even have the plug and charge thing that we were talking about here, which is just like you don't have to do any of that stuff. You just plug the thing in. I mean, that's what this feedback says, is that you just plug it in and somehow it knows who you are based on the fact that you plug the car into it because you had set up an account with Electrify America beforehand. And that's the best experience because when you fill up your car with gas, I mean, I guess you have to pay with your phone or whatever, but like just being able to pull up to one of those things, take the plug out, shove it into your car and walk away and get all those features that you described without even having to activate Apple Pay or tap it. That's pretty cool. Although I do wonder, like I've been watching a lot of videos about electric cars because there's so many of them coming out. And most of them don't appeal to me at all, but a lot of them have, I mean, I guess we'll get to this in the next feedback, interesting integrations with their various power supply things, like their sort of charging network, integrations in the car, integrations outside the car, like you said, the thing where it texts you to see how filled up your thing is or whatever. So I wonder if those features will end up being differentiators, or if we will kind of settle on one feature set, kind of like gas pumps. There's a million gas companies around here, but the feature set of gas pumps in the US has always kind of like coalesced around a standard feature set. If there was any moment where mobile speed pass came out and for a little while they wanted to have it, eventually stuff like that spreads everywhere. So it'll be interesting to see that play out with electric charging stations as well.
And speaking of very expensive cars, a friend of the show, Dave Nanian, writes, with regard to charging station integrations, each car vendor either owns a charging network or partners with one. And at least with Volkswagen, Audi, and Porsche, the charger location, routing, availability, et cetera, is fully integrated into the nav system. I'm assuming much like Tesla. Hold on, let me see if I can do this. In the Taycan, and I'm sure this is true of others, writes Dave Nanian, if I plan a trip, it automatically routes me through chargers, not just in-network ones, and it tells me how long to charge for and adjusts during the trip if conditions change. It's just like the Tesla, basically, except the DC fast chargers, while fewer in number, can go up to 350 kilowatts, and I can charge from 5 to 80% in 22 minutes. Dave admits that that's sometimes in a Walmart parking lot, which is kind of crummy, but nevertheless, it's fast, which is great.
Another cool thing about the 800-watt system and the new Hyundai, one of the features they're advertising is you can use it to charge another electric car. so you can drive over to them and just plug your thing. Like if they run out of charge somewhere, you can go there and charge them up on it.
That's interesting. That would actually be really nice for like a towing company to have some of those in their fleet. So if you have like an EV that gets totally dead and stranded on the side of the road, you could just drive this to them.
Because you can't bring a gas can.
Right. Yeah, exactly. That actually is a really good feature.
Yeah. And what you can do then is if you take a cord back from that car and put it into your car, you can drive forever.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, that's how it works.
You just have a loop.
Aye.
We are sponsored this week by Backblaze, unlimited computer backup for Macs and PCs for just $6 a month. I strongly recommend that everybody out there have a cloud backup service. Now, local backups that you have, Time Machine or clones or other backup solutions that you have on your desk, those are great, and you should have those too. But Backblaze is a cloud backup service so that they can protect you against hazards that might take out your computer and whatever backup drives are connected to it. Things like, fire, flood, power surge, theft, all sorts of things. Backblaze can protect you from those hazards. Cloud backup services, again, I strongly recommend everybody use one, and I have used all of them before. Backblaze is the one that I've stuck with. It is by far my favorite one because, quite frankly, it's the best one. All these other points, they can tell me what to say, but they can't pay me to say that I actually use this one, and I do, and it really is the best one. So Backblaze lets you back up unlimited files, everything on your computer, and any drive plugged into your computer, they will back it up for just $6 a month. They will also have this new service now. If you're worried about accidental deletion, for an extra $2 a month, you can increase your retention history up to 1 year of changes. And it's super convenient too. You can, of course, restore right from their website. You can download right from their website. Or if you have too many files to download, it'll take too long, they'll overnight you a hard drive. And then with all your files on it, and then you can return the hard drive back to them when you're done copying your files back, and they'll refund you the cost of the drive. They also have mobile apps, so if you're on the go, maybe you don't have a file with you that is on your computer back home, you can restore from their mobile apps for iOS and Android any file that's on your computer, so you can always have access to them. It's an amazing service. See for yourself with a free, fully featured, no credit card required trial at backblaze.com/ATP. That's a 15-day free trial, fully featured. Go there, play with it, start protecting yourself from bad times. Start today. Backblaze.com/ATP. Everybody should have a cloud backup service, and Backblaze is the best one, I can tell you. Thank you so much to Backblaze for sponsoring our show.
All right, let's do some Ask ATP. Brian Ash writes, this one is for John. If Apple were to announce a new Mini Mac Pro in April or May, can you imagine a configuration that would make you switch away from your Intel Mac Pro this soon? How much performance would you need, and at what price would that need to be to make the jump?
I've actually talked about this before, but it's worth revisiting now that we know more about the ARM Macs. I am totally open to a smaller version of the Mac Pro. Like, all I want is some internal storage and a big GPU, and that's what I've got in my current Mac Pro. But if you open it up, there's a lot of empty space in there, right? So if they make a miniature version that can fit the stuff that I want and doesn't have room for all the stuff that I don't use, that's fine. Like, this thing has so many slots in it. Like, I have a second GPU in there that I'm not even using just because there are so many open slots. So that's the best place in the house to store it, right? And so
Goodness.
And I think maybe something will use it for compute someday, but like, I do not need the massive amount of space that's in this thing. But I do actually enjoy the fact that I have, a bunch of internal storage in there and my big double height video card and all that stuff. So we'll see. I'm totally open to a miniature one. And as for when I would upgrade, I'm still assuming that the Mac Pro will be like if not the very last, then at least one of the last machines to port over to ARM. So I've got a while yet to see what they're going to come out with. And if the new ARM-based Mac Pro equivalent comes out like by the end of this year, I don't think I'm going to upgrade that soon. It's mostly a monetary issue because I'm not going to sell this one. Like, I don't sell my Macs. I keep them. I keep the Macs that are meaningful to me. This Mac is always going to be meaningful to me. But I don't need to use this thing for 10 years. Like, we always knew the ARM transition was coming. And I said when I bought this, if it turns out that the ARM Macs come out right after I buy this, oh well, I've got to be okay with that. And look what happened. Here it is, and I'm more or less okay with it. I'll use this Mac until I've saved up enough discretionary income to replace it, or until it becomes so obsolete that I have to replace it. So maybe not the end of this year, but, in 2-3 years, yeah, I'll be ready to replace it.
Fair enough. All right, Ling Shu Zhang writes, do you use FileVault on your personal Macs, and if so, why? I just got a new M1 MacBook Air and came across the setting during setup, which was on by default. I'm hesitant to turn it on because of the possible computational overload, but is that even still relevant? I honestly don't even know if I'm using FileVault. I think I am on my laptop. Where is that? Is that in security and privacy?
I think you've hit on the main thing that I was going to say, which is, most people don't even know whether they're using FileVault, which really speaks to how transparent it is, both from a user's perspective and I think also from a computational perspective. There is computational overhead to it, and I think it can still actually be measured, although that might be harder with the ARM Macs because all the decompression stuff probably has some dedicated hardware unit somewhere inside there. But,
well, the T2 did accelerate that.
Right.
In the last generation of Intel Macs that use the T2. Like the T2 did that, which made the computational overhead part basically free.
Free, like at the cost of some additional power that your battery, whatever. But yeah, like it's the type of thing where, like, don't worry about the performance hit is what we're saying.
Yeah, so it turns out I was looking, in system preferences, security and privacy, and then there's a tab for FileVault. Both of my computers are using it, and I would have expected that my MacBook Pro definitely was, and I wasn't sure about my iMac Pro, but yes, both of them are. And yeah, I don't think I've used FileVault, especially on laptops, for years. I don't remember ever having noticed a computational difference. I don't remember ever having noticed a slowdown. Even there have been once or twice that I've either turned it on after I've had the operating system installed and so on, or perhaps even turned it off. But I don't see any reason not to at this point, to be completely honest with you.
Marco, do you have it enabled on your Macs? Do you even know?
I didn't know. I thought I had it enabled. I just checked on my Mac Mini that I'm using now, and it's not on the Mac Mini. I figure I probably shouldn't turn it on during the recording.
I would recommend not, Casey.
But I'm pretty sure it's on my laptop. But yeah, I recommend leaving it on because at this point, this day and age, the computational overhead of that I don't think is relevant.
So my policy is I tend to put it on for laptops just because they might be lost somewhere, and whatever modicum of security it is to have this stuff encrypted at rest, I will take that, right? On my desktops, I personally choose not to enable it, but it has nothing to do with performance and everything to do with me being afraid of hosing myself somehow by either forgetting the encryption password or it's somehow getting corrupted in some way. I'm just paranoid in that way that I have enough problems. I'm always doing weird stuff with my computer, like trying to somehow get Boot Camp installed and bootable on an external disk, which was a saga that I've just reflected on this the other day, that I've long since forgotten what I did to make that happen. So if I ever had to do it again, I'd be starting from zero. But it was really hard and it was scary and it involved a lot of my machine being in a almost unbootable state. And that's before we even get to the ARM Macs, which are way harder to deal with booting and external booting, right? So the reason I don't enable it on my desktops is like, well, they're in my house. They're much less likely to be, stolen or lost. And I'm kind of afraid that I'll accidentally lock myself out. Those are probably not good reasons. You should probably just enable encryption everywhere. But it seems like, based on Marco's experience, that Apple still doesn't default it to on for its desktop Macs. Otherwise, if Marco doesn't remember explicitly choosing not to do it, it was probably just the default. I'm assuming it defaults to on all their laptops, but maybe not on their desktops. So,
I mean, this is also an installation that I brought forward from old desktops. Yeah. So I just checked. My laptop does indeed have it on, and I'm kind of with you. Like I tend to make my laptops more secure. Like for instance, I always leave Find My Mac on my laptops. But I don't leave it on my desktops because remember back when Matt Honam was hacked and they used Find My Mac to remote wipe all of his Macs? That scared me enough that like I like the ability to remote wipe my laptop if it ever gets stolen, but I don't want anybody to have the ability to remote wipe my desktop. So that's just one of those things. Like I always turn that off on the desktop. But yeah, FileVault is on the laptop, and I leave all the high security stuff there. And I think I'll turn it on my desktop too, because why not?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I see no reason not to be completely honest. All right, and then finally from Johan Newbert, what do you think about the longevity of the M1? How long do you think they will last? Usually buying a quote-unquote first-generation Mac computer can be bad in the long run. Do you think that they'll last as long as iPhones or even as long as John's old Mac Pro? I mean, I don't know. Look at iPhones, right? Because this is, or iPads perhaps, especially early on, like in the iPhone 4 era, you were seeing dramatic speed increases with each new year's phone. But I feel like the last couple of phones have gotten, they're snappier, sure, but I wouldn't say it's a dramatic increase like it was in years past. So I would expect it's probably a 3 to 4 to 5 year chip without feeling too terrible about it. I mean, and also look at the iMac Pro, my iPad Pro from 2018. I don't feel like I'm, CPU bound or CPU limited very often on that thing, and that's 3 years old now. So I think you'll get some time out of it. What do you think, Marco?
Yeah, I think if anything, you might get more time than you expect because it's the first of the new architecture. So far, like the reason why you're not really supposed to buy the first version of things if you can help it is that usually the first version has problems, just weird bugs or shortcomings or weird things that they fix in later versions. We've had the M1 stuff now since November, or October, whenever it was delivered in November. So, we've had them now for, good half a year, and there don't seem to be many issues. And possibly even any major ones.
There's some software issues. Like I
agreed.
Poll my kids about the reliability of macOS on the M1s, but they don't have anything to do with the hardware. It's just like, okay, well, macOS has some shortcomings in terms of drivers or whatever, there's more weird pink screens or not unlocking or stuff like that. But the software will continue to get updated, and the software will eventually come to accommodate these. But there's nothing weird about this hardware from a hardware perspective, simply because it is so much like, and now is identical to, the iPad hardware from which it's derived, right? So it's not like this is the very first system on a chip that Apple has made, right? So I think the hardware is very solid. And Casey was talking about like projecting forward, like how much faster a chip's going to be. Like, well, is the next year's chip going to be so fast that you'll feel bad about having this one? The more important direction is to look is backwards, because backwards behind this thing are the Intel chips, and they're way down there in the mud in terms of performance, right? So as these machines get older, the Intel machines will rapidly become, so slow I can't even imagine using those. But these things will hang on, because this is the big leap. This is the big discontinuity. It was like slow and steady 1 or 2% or 5% increase in Intel chips, and then this huge leap to the M1. And it's going to take a long time before the performance that's available in the M1 becomes so slow that you can't even imagine using it, right? Like, so I think these M1s, assuming there's no catastrophic hardware problem, are going to be usable, useful computers for a really long time. Like, think about that fanless $999 MacBook Air. What an amazing performance bargain. I think that computer will last longer than any $1,000 Apple computer has, perhaps ever. So
yeah,
I am very optimistic about how long these will be usable, especially since that M1 MacBook Air doesn't have any moving parts even. Like, it's so much, it's like an electric car, so much simpler, so much fewer parts inside it, fewer things to go wrong, and the performance is great. So thumbs up on the M1. We made a shirt about it.
The only thing I will note about the performance characteristics of the M1, now having used them full time for however many months, the reason it feels so ridiculously fast, and the reason why certain tasks are so incredibly much faster than they were on Intel, or smoother or better responding, the ceiling of performance when you have very like efficient, parallelized, vectorized code is not that much higher than what we had before. In some cases, it isn't higher at all. What they did was they raised the floor a lot. So a lot of common things on the M1, common CPU tasks and everything, those are faster, sometimes by a lot. And so it seems like performance all across the board, everything is just snappier and more responsive. But where the M1 is limited is when you want to push it really hard, when you're maxing out all the cores and doing something really CPU intensive. It's not slow, but it's not as much faster than the Intel stuff as you would expect based on how much faster it is with kind of more pedestrian tasks.
Well, it depends on what you're comparing it to. If you compare it to the Intel $999 MacBook Air, it crushes it, and even in the parallel stuff. But as you get to the higher end, yeah, because they're using this chip everywhere. Again, we've just seen the low-end computers here. Well, let's say the MacBook Pro, 13-inch MacBook Pro. That's an area where I can imagine the previous best 13-inch MacBook Pro Intel model would match it in multi-core, maybe. But like, as you get to the lower end machines, you're thinking of multi-core as compared to like, what about my 10-core iMac Pro? But that's not what these machines are competing with.
Right, exactly. And so if you are someone who tends to buy like the high core machines, the 15 or 16-inch MacBook Pro, the iMac Pro, the Mac Pro, if you're buying the highest core counts and you're maxing those things out, first of all, you're going to want probably more GPU power than this can offer if you're using that for like video stuff. But I can see a good case for waiting until whatever it's called, the M1X or maybe the M2, whatever like the beefier version of this for the bigger computers ends up being called, waiting for that. But otherwise, like that's by the way, that's why like my computer never feels slow to me anymore unless I am doing something like an Xcode archive build or a lot of Xcode builds, honestly, where my project is big enough now that when I do a lot of builds in Xcode, and I'm using enough Swift now, thanks a lot Swift, whenever I do a build in Xcode, it maxes out all of the cores for maybe 10 to 60 seconds, depending on what exactly it's doing. And you definitely feel that. And there are areas where I would love to have more high-performance cores, just so I can shorten those builds. And when that, whatever the next, little Mac Pro ends up being, whenever that comes out, I will probably buy it for that reason, because I don't need any GPU power more than I already have, but I really would love way more high-performance cores. Like, as many as they will give me, I'll take them. And because right now I have 4, that's great. Give me 12, give me 16, great. That would be even better. And so I don't know what they're going to do, but if you have that kind of performance need where you're doing a lot of high-end parallel stuff, you may want to wait and see what else comes out after this if you're looking to use it for a very long time. That being said, right now, I am incredibly satisfied with this. It just, the only time I notice it being a little bit slow is that. But I also look and say, like, well, this is a MacBook Air or a Mac Mini, depending on which computer I'm using. And like, these are, for what they are and for what I paid for them, it's fantastic. All right, thank you to our sponsor this week, Backblaze, and thank you to our members who support us directly. You can become a member and get a discount on our new merch by going to atp.fm/join. If you just want to buy a shirt and not become a member, no problem, that's cool. Go to atp.fm/store. Thank you, everybody, and we will talk to you next week.
Now the show is over. They didn't even mean to begin, 'cause it was accidental. Oh, it was accidental. John didn't do any research. Marco and Casey wouldn't let him, 'cause it was accidental. Oh, it was accidental. And you can find the show notes at atp.fm. And if you're into Twitter, you can follow them at CASEYLISS. So that's Casey Liss, MARCOARMENT, Marco Arment, SIRAC, USA Syracuse. It's accidental. They didn't mean to. Accidental. Tech podcast so long.
Oh my God, my arms are on fire.
Your arms? Oh, because
The
of
hives.
Oh,
right,
I've
yes,
never
yes.
had hives before this week. It's terrible.
It does not sound particularly fun.
Like, and these aren't even like severe hives. Like, I don't have to be scratching them all the time. I'm trying not to scratch them at all. And they go away like sometime in the middle of the night. And like, so I go to bed. They start around like 7 or 8 p.m. I go to bed, and then I wake up in the morning and they're gone. So I don't know what's going on.
Well, people give me stick talking about my toes on rectus. I think this is worse. I don't want to hear about hives.
I don't want to have them. Believe me, this is it's not a fun thing. But
Well, how do you think all that 5G is getting out of you, man?
Yeah.
I'm glad that they started before the shot, so I know that that's not it.
No, that's
That's
not.
true,
You're
actually.
right.
That's a good point.
Your body's a petri dish.
Ugh.
Some people's body are a wonderland. Marco's body is a petri dish.
I always get the weird medical issues in the family. Like, I don't have
Aren't you
anything
lucky?
normal that's wrong with me. I only have occasional really weird stuff like this happen, and then it goes away. Like, okay, well. So, anyway, hopefully by next week I won't be having hives every night for unknown reasons.
Yeah, by next week's show, I will be vaccinated.
And next week's show, I will be where Marco is, because that's the day my second shot is scheduled for.
Oh,
And
nice.
I don't recall. Are you Pfizer or Moderna?
Pfizer.
Okay, so I'm the lone Moderna man.
Yeah,
I
my
see
wife
how
got
it
her
is.
second shot today too. She's went to bed early complaining of a headache. So
Lots of hydration is what I've heard.
Oh,
I'm not
I
sure
know.
that
Yeah.
I think it's placebo, but I mean, it's always a good idea anyway.
It is probably a placebo, but I was drinking water, Powerade, Pedialyte, literally Pedialyte, like whatever, nonstop the day before and the day of, and I really did not have a bad go of it at all. Like I said, I think earlier in the show, there was a couple hours where I was like really chilly during the day and felt a little run down. I had a lot of like, I don't know if you guys get this, but when I take NyQuil, which I don't do often, the following day I'll wake up and I'll feel like my head is like 2 or 3 floors above my body. That's the only way I can describe it. Like, it's the most odd, like very light, not lightheaded, but like fuzzy feeling. And I would waffle between, oh, my head is not several stories above my body like it is after NyQuil, but it's like the next story above my body. And then it would go into like a light headache and then back to this like floating head, like brain fog, as Roll Call says in the chat. That's a good way of looking at it. And I kept going back and forth with that. And I was freezing at night for 2 nights. But that was it. Like, I tweeted about all this, and some people were like, wow, that sounds really bad. And I was like, no, actually, it really was nothing. Like, it really wasn't bad at all. So, yeah, it seems to be just the luck of the draw. I don't know what to make of it.
I can tell you from experience, though, this is all better than actual COVID.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, from my experience not having had it, it's like certainly even what Aaron's going through, you know, super tired and feeling not the greatest. Like, I'll take that over COVID any day of the week. And you actually are you're uniquely positioned to say with authority that it is indeed better.
Yeah, imagine having that brain fog for a month.
Yeah, no.
In addition to like the horrible fever and aches and everything that you had for 2 weeks. Like that's it's no contest. Like,
no, thank you.
this is better.
Indeed. I've probably said this live, and the thing of it is that, like, if I knew that COVID was just a bad flu, like, hear me out. If I knew it was like just a bad flu where you feel like crap for a week, like, fine, whatever. I probably would have just gone on living my life. But because there's such a variance between, like, oh, you get it and nothing really happens, and oh, you get it and literally die. Like, that's why I've been locked in my house for a year, because you don't know what's going to happen. And yeah, like, Aaron and I both were, not that we were dreading getting our second shot, but we're both like, oh God, what's going to come of this? Are we going to feel like death for a day? But you know what? I'll take it. That is absolutely worth it. I will absolutely do it. And I wasn't planning on getting preachy in the after show, but here we are. If you have the opportunity to get a vaccination, please do so. Please do so.
This is really, like, this is all of our duty to society. If you can get vaccinated, get vaccinated.
Yep. Couldn't agree more. I think that's fine for an after show, to be honest with you.
I don't know how long I have in this Benadryl, so we're gonna keep it moving.
Man, I gotta get you on the phone in like an hour and start asking for something that you really don't want to give me. Like, hey man, you want to buy me a Tycon?
Store's down, Marco. You got to fix it. What?
You won't be able to. I'll be in DND mode, auto DND. 10 p.m. is when it starts.
Hey man, I can call you twice in a row. That'll bust right through.
Mm-hmm.
Will it? I think it's only if I like tell you to, right? Like, don't I have to whitelist you for that, or is that everybody?
I think it might be like people in your address book can double call through. I don't remember.
Ah, crap! You're in my address book.
Oh, he's not gonna actually do it. Don't worry.
I'm not.
Yeah, he's gonna be asleep by then.
Oh yeah, I'm absolutely going to sleep.
Yeah, he's getting his sleepy shirt. So yeah,
I am in my sleepy shirt. You are correct. That is a fact.
I'm in my sleepy hives, so I'm ready to go.
Oh no, you're in your own sleepy shirt.
Yes,
manner of speaking.
Red and blotchy on my arms.
Gross. Oh,
kind of itchy, kind of hot.
Okay, I did think the toe thing was much worse, but we're starting to even out the longer you go on.
I mean, the toe wasn't like infectious, or you know what I mean. Like it's not spreading across my body, whereas Marco's just
hives aren't infectious.
You're just gonna be one big hive soon.
Yeah, but it's not infectious. It doesn't spread to other people.
I don't know how the
That's not
hives work. It's spreading to yourself.
Now, granted, I only learned this like 48 hours ago when I looked it all up. Oh, God. This is terrible. I don't know how people do this. Like, a lot of allergy people have hives on a more regular basis. God, I hope this is not my new life. I hope this better not be my new normal.
Time for some more allergy shots.
Yeah, I actually haven't gotten them in a few months because it's difficult where I live to get that done. But yeah.
All right. Well, before you die, let's say goodbye to the live listeners. Thank you if you're listening live. If you've joined, because at least a couple of you did. If you've bought merch, which I haven't looked, but I'm assuming at least a couple of you did. Thank you. Thank you for just listening to us shill for all these things. That's very kind of you. And thank you for being live listeners. Hopefully not covered in hives. Live listeners, not hive listeners.
You all can rest assured when Casey said a few of you joined, Casey watches the membership number.
Oh, like a hawk. Like a hawk. You don't even know.
There was one time when there was like a wave of payment failures, and just because it was like the interval that they renew on. And Casey posted in our chat we've had disastrous. What was the word you used?
I know what you're thinking of, but I don't remember.
Like a disastrous drop in members, and it was like 0.01% or something. But it was like
whatever.
It was like some number of people, like 5 people or something.
It was more than 5, you big jerk. But yes,
it was some small number of people, and you were like, it's a disaster.
Excuse me, it was like 20 or 30 people, sir. And I will concede that I was definitely having a Chicken Little moment. It was more than you were making it out to be, but it was still not as much as my reaction justified.
Yeah, and regardless, so if you're out there thinking, should I become a member? Would they even notice? Rest assured, Casey will notice.
I will notice.
I look at the numbers too, and I actually keep track of them. I mean, I don't keep track of them over time, but I do have a little solver sheet that I updated in. Let's put it this way, prospective members, we do not have enough members that you are one of an anonymous few. You are a precious gem, a unique ingot of whatever. There's not so many members, so come and join, so there'll be more.
And rest assured, at least Casey and probably John will notice.
Right.
I won't notice, but I will appreciate it.
Marco doesn't give a shit. But
I care about like, you know,
I'm kidding.
He cares in the aggregate, but
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
I care like what's the ballpark of how we're doing, and is the average either going up or staying the same? That's what I care about. If it starts if the average starts going down, then I'll start caring in a bad way, you know. But like as long as things are flat or going up, like trend wise, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I pay closer attention than I know I should, and it's probably healthy, but it's important to me. So, that implies it's not important to you too. You know what I mean? It's just there are things that I choose to worry about.
Casey also needs his garage door status in his status menu bar on his Mac. So,
hey, both of these things, they're literally next to each other.
Oh yeah, did you see this? I think this was the best email of the week from Russ Newcomer. Subject line: Casey, AirTags use. I am surely not the first person to suggest that you put one on the top half of your garage door to determine if it's open or not.
I read that. I'm like, how is that supposed to work? It's like the U1 can like point an arrow to say if it's open or closed. Like, I don't feel like the resolution would be enough to make that useful.
Well, it depends on how close the bedroom is to the garage. It's pretty close,
That's
right?
That's true, actually.
Isn't it right on top of it?
Literally, that's right. Our master bedroom is directly above the garage.
Then we had to like launch the Find My app, which always takes a long time, and wait for it to find and register and show the little arrow and then show the number of feet.
I was slightly miffed by it, but also it was a very, very good email. And so I did laugh.
That was my favorite email of the week. Russ gets an award, a gold star for the best email of the week.
I've put in our super secret text. This is my menu bar as it stands right this very moment. So you'll see that there's a padlock that is locked. So the garage is indeed closed. And then there's a 1 to 7 digit number that indicates subscriber count.
You have that in your menu bar?
You're damn right I do. You're damn right I do.
He's got too much stuff in that menu bar. Like, do you need Backblaze there? Like, the whole point of Backblaze is it just runs without you worrying about it.
No, I don't want Backblaze there. Can I remove it?
Yes. Go to the
pref
pane. Go to the pref pane and uncheck the checkbox. Yeah.
Where? I don't see any such checkbox.
Find it for you.
I don't even know what half the stuff in my menu bar is.
Backblaze.
Oh my God, there it is.
Settings.
Oh, John, I love you.
It's not new. It's always been there.
I don't doubt it. I've just never noticed. I love you, John. That's
all right. So then I save you some space. What else can we get rid of? You can't get rid of Skype because it puts that up there whenever it's running.
Well, that'll go away. Do is there.
Bluetooth. Do you actually use that menu bar?
I used to more often than I do now, so I could probably remove that.
Yeah,
one.
Control Center now makes that a lot less necessary for a lot of people.
Do you ever disable Wi-Fi or pick a different network?
No. Oh,
get that out of there.
Oh, okay, yeah, good idea.
We're really cleaning house here.
Oh, okay. I'm liking this. All right. Can I get rid of the Wi-Fi?
You can.
Oh yeah, I can't.
Command drag, and it's still available under Control Center if you ever actually want to do it. So it's technically still in your menu bar.
Yeah. Oh, you're performing a wonderful service, John.
Yep. And then get rid of Fuzzy Clock because it's dumb.
I like Fuzzy Clock. For those who don't know, Fuzzy Clock is right now. It says literally the words 5 space 2. Yeah.
FIVE space TO space TEN because it's 5 to 10.
I like Fuzzy Clock.
And that's like, it's like, how can we make time really hard to read quickly? Like, I know time is easy to tell at a glance because people are used to looking at both analog clocks and digital clocks, but can we slow them down? Can we add cognitive load? And someone said, yes, we can.
All right, I'm also taking away day one. I used to be religious about taking a note as to what I worked on each day.
That's the little bookmark.
Yep, that's the bookmark. And I don't do that anymore, so I'm just taking that away. Droppler, I use enough that I want it in the menu bar, even though I probably should just remove it.
What's the lock icon on the far left?
That's my garage door, man. It's closed.
Oh, that's right. Okay. But you need a custom icon for the garage door. Now that we've made all this space for the glory item, which is the garage door, you need a custom template image for garage door open and garage door closed.
Yeah. Everything else, though, I have iStat menus, which I know is your favorite app of all time. Let's see. If I could can I get rid of Time Machine up there?
You can get rid of Siri. I would recommend it.
Can I?
Yeah.
God bless. How do I not know all these things? God, I'm an amateur.
You don't use a Mac? I don't know.
Seriously. Good grief. Oh, this is looking so much better, John. I would get rid of the clock, but now that's the freaking notification center, so I can't get rid of that. I can't get rid of Spotlight either.
Hey, you got Fuzzy Clock and you've got the analog clock. But
I know. Then Synology Drive. Yeah, see, this is looking much better.
I'm basically making your screen bigger. Pretty soon it'll feel like you have an XDR.